Let's talk about Unfriended Dark Web, which is a sequel to Unfriended, this 2014 horror co-production between Blumhouse and this Russian filmmaker Timur Bekmambetov. It was marketed as found footage, but that's not quite what it is. I think a better way of describing it is shared screen horror. So basically what you see on the cinema screen throughout is someone's laptop or desktop computer display, and the story plays out in its entirety in windows on that display, so via voice calls or scrolling through social media, video calls as well, Skype things, text chat, direct messages, all this kind of thing. And you have to, by watching what's going on this screen, follow along with the story. Now, it sounds incredibly complicated and abstract. Actually, if you have any kind of computer literacy whatsoever, it's amazingly intuitive. And after maybe 2 minutes of acclimatization, you're following along perfectly. Despite, however, this completely radical form, the substance of it is very, very traditional. And that is that you have a small selection of 5 or 6 teenagers who are murdered one by some malignant force. In the first film, that force was a supernatural power. In this film, it is something more down to earth. Now, to give you an idea of how this film plays, because the format is so unusual, there's a clip here, and the clip is actually quite confusing to listen to, but it gives you a really good idea of how this differs from any other film watching experience.
Kelly! Kelly!
Hey, hold on, 1 second. Hello? Yeah, we did. Okay. Well, he must have figured it out because we got him. Yeah, sure thing. Thanks. Sorry, that was the pizza place. I guess the driver called, couldn't figure out where we were or something. I don't know. Hi.
Is Amaya with you right now?
No. I mean, I just got in. And I think Amaya's in the shower.
You could possibly get it for me right now?
Wow. But, okay.
Hello?
Are you there? I can hear you. Are you still
Kelly,
there?
I can't see you.
I can't see you.
Where'd you go? Hold on a
Yeah.
second.
Is that on your end or?
No, I think it's my end. Yeah, sorry. Hold on.
That's all very dramatic.
Right, so you have people talking almost at cross purposes on this video chat there. And the tension is built by the image stalling or smearing or, and then obviously at the end you have the kind of classic horror jump scare. But the way in which it gets to it is for me, it's a really kind of interesting, it's very innovative treatment of the horror genre. Now, one of the talkers there is Matthias, who's played by Colin Wandell. And he has obtained this secondhand laptop. And in order to continue working on this app, he's had an idea for an app, which is to translate voice into sign language in order to kind of present this to his girlfriend, Amaya, who's deaf. This is a kind of a declaration of, how much he loves her, and he wants to kind of build this for her and then kind of release it into the world to help other people. On this laptop, he decides to have this 5-way Skype chat with his friends from around America, and then there's one guy in the UK as well. And in order to have a game night, so they'll sit and play Cards Against Humanity, and they'll chat to each other. However, he realizes that while the laptop is continually stalling, that there must be some kind of problem with the hard disk. So he goes in and he discovers this cache of hidden files, which are obviously they're obviously created by someone who's up to no good whatsoever. There's weird kind of surveillance footage. There's some very weird not surveillance footage. There's some very, very, very strange things in this folder. It's also been concealed from sight, so it's obviously not supposed to be found. But he also realizes that whoever previously owned the laptop has left their social media logins onto autofill. So if he is so minded, he can go into their Facebook account and see what they're up to. He decides, of course, to have a look because the temptation is too strong, and that's a decision he very, very much lives to regret, and as do his friends around the world. Now, the film is kind of tapping into everything you'd expect it to tap into. The primary fear it's kind of interested in is this idea that we store so much about ourselves online that it's kind of, if someone was to had the motivation to join the dots, they could find out enough about us for it to be a serious kind of almost existential threat to who we are. You could kind of masquerade as someone else. You could destroy their life from the inside out. So that's part of it. And there's also this idea that the dark web, which is in the subtitle, there's sections of the internet that we really don't know anything about. And there's all these kind of weird illegal businesses going on, strange transactions, horrible things changing hands. just almost, weirdly through the wires around us, but in a way that we don't understand. And this, it taps into interest about, blockchain and cryptocurrencies as well. That all kind of plays a factor in what's going on and this strange stuff that these kids uncover on the computer. But what really excited me about it is it opens up this whole new avenue of horror techniques that you don't really see anywhere else. There are these standard horror techniques like the jump scare, for example. You go into a horror film, you expect at some point to be shocked by a loud noise, or the frame will perhaps leave a big empty expanse for something to leap into. That trick with the bathroom cabinet mirror where the door suddenly shuts and something's in there. So these very tried and tested horror techniques that scare you, basically by having the film take place on a desktop, there's this whole new range of techniques opens up. For example, you can have something playing in video chat but concealed behind another window. So something important and suspenseful is going on, but you can't see it properly because there's another window on top. There's this other great thing that came across, and it didn't, of course, come across in the clip because the clip's purely audio, but what's going on there is it's this idea of, when you're watching someone via a webcam, you can see what's going on in the room, but you're not necessarily in a position to intervene at all. If the mic's turned off, they can't even hear you. And that, for me, there's that kind of universal human nightmare of being rooted to the spot and seeing something awful happening and, trying to move and not being able to. I'm not sure that cinema has ever kind of expressed that nightmare scenario more kind of clearly or directly than in this idea that you're watching a webcam, you're watching someone, go for a shower and kind of wander around, get dressed and blah, blah, blah. And something awful is going to happen. You want to intervene and you can't. So it's this idea that, yes, it's very scary in the moment. The story itself is neither here nor there. I've kind of half forgotten it already. It's like I said, it's about nasty things happening in horrible corners of the internet. It's not something that will really stick with you. But it's the technique, it's the fact that it's scary in the moment. And why is it scary in the moment? Because it's doing these things that other horror films have not been able to do with a different format. So I think if you're interested in the mechanics of horror, it's very, very worth seeing this, even though it's possibly not a horror film, like Hereditary, for example, that has got these great, rich characters and incredible story ideas that are going to stay with you for years and years and years. The technique here is interesting enough to merit going along to see by itself.